Hello, ambitious moms. This is episode 101 of Achieve Your Ambitious Mom Life. I'm Anuki Kapasi. If you're feeling guilty even imagining a slower season in your life, then this episode is really going to be helpful to you. I'm actually creating this episode because it's something that I have had to deal with very recently, and I've learned a lot along the way. I've been grappling between one side where I have so much I want to do. I have so much I want to get done. And there is this ambitious side of me that just wants to keep going and going and going. But then there is a side of me that recognizes the importance of slowing down. And if I need to slow down, how should I do that? Well, you probably have faced similar questions before at some time or another, especially in motherhood. As high-achieving women, especially in STEM, we're conditioned to believe that constant productivity equals success. It really is unsustainable. Yet we tell ourselves, you just have to keep pushing through. Just keep going until you get to the other side. Things will be better then. And then you realize, wait, there's no other side to this, right? Well, I recently made a deliberate choice to pause both my scientific consulting and parts of my business. It started off out of necessity, but eventually this deliberate pause evolved into a much more intentional experiment. What I want to tell you about are the results of all of these things that happened after this. And the thing is that what I learned really surprised me because slowing down does not feel like something an achievement-oriented mind would engage in. And so today I'm sharing how I found that intentional rest isn't really falling behind. It can actually be a strategic move. You can strategically pause in a way that creates clarity, prevents burnout, and helps you realign with your values. So if you're ready to feel more like yourself again, then grab your favorite drink and listen in.
Are you looking for a way to blend success and motherhood without losing sight of who you are? I get it. I've been there too. Hi, I'm Anuki, a PhD researcher, business owner, and homeschooling mom of 2 boys. As your life coach, I help moms like you create a life you love at home and at work. If you're ready to stop feeling overwhelmed, overscheduled, and overlooked, and want a clear roadmap to a balanced life, a meaningful career, and finally feeling like yourself again while being the awesome mama that you are, you're in the right place. In this journey to create the life you truly desire, it's time to rediscover your dreams and achieve your ambitious mom life.
If you enjoy the Achieve Your Ambitious Mom Life podcast, please take a moment to leave a review on Apple Podcasts, as it helps more ambitious moms decide whether this is the show for them. Your feedback not only improves the show, but also builds our supportive community of purpose-driven mamas. One listener shared, "Well done on your podcast. It's so good." Well, thank you so much, Miranda. Your message was so simple, but it was so direct, and it really helps me know that I'm on the right track. So thank you so much, and I really hope to produce more helpful episodes. So ladies, reviews like yours help me tailor content to better serve your needs. Would you mind sharing what you think by leaving a quick review today? It takes just a minute of your day, but it makes a lasting impact on my growing podcast. Thanks, and I can't wait to read what you have to say. As I said earlier, that this episode really comes from a kind of experiment that I ended up running in my own life. Earlier in this year, I had decided to pause my scientific consulting work temporarily just to focus on my business because there were so many different projects I wanted to ramp up in my business. But then around November, December, some unexpected things happened, and I was forced to take an even bigger break, which involved deliberately slowing down on the business side of things too. And you might have even noticed I haven't been sending as many newsletters, I haven't showed up on LinkedIn as much as I normally do, and so many other things behind the scenes that I've kind of hit the pause button on. Now, while the circumstances in which I was forced to take this break are not necessarily positive things, these were unexpected and painful experiences that my family had to deal with, and involved a lot of flying back and forth for me. But what did feel good is that I was able to turn the dial up or down in my business, depending on how much time and energy I had to put in it. So in the past 2 months where I've been forced to focus my attention elsewhere in my life, it was a bit of a relief that I had the freedom to pause different parts of my business and not have to stress about that. And actually, I could be really strategic about it too. And that's really what I want to talk about. I found that having this rest period in the business wasn't just about having a physical or emotional break in the business. Because for me, that portion of it was really just temporary for what I was dealing with. But that there's also this strategic component that will have a permanent footprint on my business from here on out. And so I'm going to go through some of the more strategic things that you can do when you pause or slow down on any ambitious goal or business or activity that you have. So I want to start off by making sure that we're on the same page, because people refer to these pauses as different things: sabbaticals, pauses, resting, slowing down, breaks. Well, for sure, there are different types of breaks. I'm not talking about those 5-minute, 1-hour breaks that you might take in the middle of the day. Those little pauses are absolutely important and they have their time and place. The purpose of those types of pauses are really to just kind of refresh your mind on the short-term basis, or to give your body and your mind something else to do. I'm talking about the much more involved pause, something that really changes the pace of the entire goal or business or project that you're working on. And of course, with these, there are also different degrees of pausing. You can slow down, which is to keep working, but to really minimize how much work you're putting in and working at everything at a much slower rate. There are complete pauses and breaks where you have, for a defined period of time, decided to complete all work on a particular project. So in my case, I have taken a complete pause on my scientific consulting. I absolutely intend to get back to that. That was a strategic move so that I could focus all of my mental energy in the limited time that I spend working in the evenings on just growing my business and developing various projects. But when it comes to my business right now, I have essentially slowed down. I have kept up with minimal amounts of work that I need to keep some basic things going. For example, I know you've come to expect 2 episodes per week on the show. There are other ways that I show up, but in a much more muted fashion right now. So when I talk in this episode about strategic pauses or resting and slowing down, I'm really talking about all of these types of breaks. There is a strategic way to go about it so that your brain has time to process, reflect, reconnect, and just reduce all of this mental load that comes with constant decision making. Because when you do all of that, you're going to start to see things much more clearly again. And that is exactly what happened to me. So I'm going to tell you exactly why an ambitious woman like you might want to actually slow down, which sounds counterintuitive, and exactly how I strategically turned a forced pause into a sort of slowdown in my business that really enhanced it and didn't take away from it. Because I think that this is a very repeatable thing that you might want to try out at different times in your ambitious work. And while there are many different reasons why you might want to slow down or take a break, I'm going to tell you 2 of the big ones that would be really good signs that you might need a break. They might trigger you into wanting to or having to slow down in your work. So the first reason is if you want to prevent or avoid burning out. As high performers, we're so used to this high level of productivity. It's part of who we are. We have so much that we want to accomplish. And you might have found yourself many times really in the zone. You're super focused in a state of flow and time just flies by. And when you're done, you feel like you've checked off so many boxes on your list. You've made a lot of progress on your project or your goal. But this isn't all the time, right? Like often our days are chaotic and busy, and we're not always on top of everything, but we do still have to get a lot done, and we want to get a lot done. We might find ourselves dealing with all of that invisible work. You know, the stuff that we do to keep our homes running, our families on schedule, like laundry and meals and cleaning, setting up appointments or going to the appointments, birthday party planning, all of the caregiving and the love that we show our families. Well, it's not that we're complaining that we have to do all of this work, but it kind of falls into this thankless category because the norm is for us to expect constant, visible productivity. So those types of tasks make it feel like life is just one long to-do list, but we're not really ever making any progress on it. But our brains are not built to run at this superwoman level of workload. Between our careers, our goals, and our homes, we are constantly multitasking, and that's actually quite unproductive. We have to make all of these decisions for so many big and little things every day, and it can leave us so fatigued from decision making. And so without proper planning, you can be chronically overwhelmed, and that can lead to burnout. Taking some rest, slowing down on your goals and your ambitions, that rest isn't laziness. It's kind of a counterweight to all of those invisible mental and emotional laborious tasks that we have to do every day. As important as those tasks are, and as undervalued as they might be, taking a rest can actually make it easier to do those tasks. So if you want to prevent burning out, think about a strategic way to pause or slow down in whatever you're working on. And the second big reason you might want to do this pause is if you're feeling like you're getting off track. See, if you're stuck in survival mode, then often you're kind of reacting to things all the time, but not in alignment. You're doing things without intentionality. And when that happens, you might get off course. So by resting or pausing, you can actually make the time to figure out how to recalibrate. Because if you don't pause, then you're going to keep going down the wrong path for you. And that's not going to serve you in any way. So rest is not just about, self-care as many people often think of it. It's also about so many other things, which I'm going to get into more in depth about. So when you're feeling off track or out of alignment, a recalibration may be involved. And that could be recalibrating your identity, redefining success, or just getting back into sync with what's important to you. So let me go deeper on some of those things that I just mentioned. Sometimes we're just doing and doing and doing, and you kind of lose yourself, right? I hear that all the time, feeling lost in motherhood or not knowing who you are anymore. With a pause or slowing down, you could use that time to find out who you are, especially if you're feeling overwhelmed and disconnected with yourself. So in this way, rest is a required step in reclaiming your identity. It's not taking a step away from your ambitions. You want to know who you are and feel strong in that as you pursue your ambitions. Also, we're often so set on defining our self-worth through our accomplishments. And so when our definition of success changes as we move forward in our journey in motherhood, especially that first step that we take where we become mothers, our definition might change. We might be, instead of seeking glory or moving up and getting promoted, some of our goals may actually be to incorporate more joy or to have a little more freedom in our lives. This emotional aspect of success is now part of our success definition, but we don't change the way we go about getting things done in our lives. So there's that mismatch. And so that's one of the things that I actually include in my alignment audit when you have your free call with me. So if that feels like something you might need, you absolutely want to go to the show notes and schedule that free call with me. It's one of the big things that life planning can actually address. And as I said, when you feel out of sync with the things that are important to you, that's because what you're desiring is intentional time with your family, with your goals, with yourself. You're not just looking for more time, it's the quality of time. You want to have more quality moments with your family. You want to make the most of the time that you have with your children, especially since we all know how quickly they grow up, right? You don't want to just get sucked into the daily grind at the expense of your health or neglecting yourself. So yeah, self-care is also a part of all of this. What we want instead is to trade in that daily grind at work or when we're just on power mode 10 with everything that we're doing for intentional pockets of rest that bring back joy into our day. So if you're struggling to find time for yourself because you're taking care of everyone else 24/7 and you're neglecting yourself, you have limited personal time and space and you rarely get moments alone, even for basic things like just finding some time and privacy to go to the bathroom, right? Well, in these instances, you might want to consider slowing down on whatever it is that you're working on. I believe one of the biggest things that holds us back from giving ourselves permission to slow down or rest or pause is guilt. Mom guilt, but guilt in general. We're trying to balance life and work and motherhood, and there's so much pressure to be that perfect mom. And to be honest, taking rest feels so risky because in science and technology, the culture is to reward overworking, to promote constant output. So when you're surrounded or been trained in a culture like that STEM-based culture, where we feel lucky as a woman to even be a part of a scientific career and company, it just feels so risky to pause. Guys, I know what it's like to feel stuck in survival mode. Thinking you're not doing enough for your kids, even when you manage to get them to all of the places that they need to be. And thinking that you're not doing enough in your career because you chose not to stay back to finish up a project or some tasks that somehow makes you look less committed. And in the meanwhile, you haven't touched the goals that you actually want to work on, and now you're starting to feel like something just isn't aligned anymore. And friends, that is a lot for one mind to be carrying, the tasks, the schedules, the decisions, the worries, and the care. We're just trying to balance it all. Can you see how you deserve a rest from carrying a full mental load like that, to feel scattered from all of the decisions and feeling lost after being a mom for so long? You're always putting everyone else first, and in the process, you're neglecting yourself. Right now, you're thinking, if I rest, I'm going to fall behind even more. We're all thinking it, right? I want you to shift that type of thinking to, if I don't rest, if I keep pushing through, I'm guaranteed to burn out. And even worse, I'm going to start resenting my life. I've been there, guys, so I know what I'm talking about here. But I also know how to get out of that feeling. So let's move into solutions mode now. How do you strategically slow down or pause on whatever it is you're working on? Well, I've conveniently broken it down into 4 steps. This is how I've been navigating all of the various pauses, career pauses, breaks I've taken in certain efforts or roles that I have, and now with these 2 months of having slowed down with my business. The first step is, once you recognize that you're in need of a rest, is to just let it happen. Just slow down, let the rest happen, and start pausing where it makes sense. There is a little bit of tapping into your intuition and just following your energy a little bit. The strategic part of it is thinking about, what is the minimum I could get away with and keep things running? Let's say you're trying to slow down. So for me, when it comes to Solve for Mom, I've needed these 2 months to really be able to pay attention to other things going on in my life, right? And so I started to take inventory. What are all the tasks that I do? I actually didn't have to start from scratch because I have all my systems laid out. I have a very strong workflow. And so I was able to go through that workflow and start triaging and moving certain tasks that I spend on a daily and weekly basis over into a sort of pause pile. So for me, to keep things running, I continued my podcast episodes because I know that I put 2 out a week and I want to stay consistent with that. I also continued with coaching clients and doing interviews because I didn't want to leave anyone hanging. So I focused on continuing to help the women that I'm already helping, but I didn't actively start promoting and seeking out new clients, at least in these past 2 months. I also decided that I was going to pause the newsletters, the blogs, my LinkedIn posts, Pinterest graphics, and a lot of the project and business development efforts that I had in play earlier. These are all temporary. All of this will return back, and you're going to see when it comes back, because I'm going to do it with intentionality. It's going to be a much more stronger show of effort on my end. And I'm going to explain how that happens in a bit. So I've talked about a minimum viable day before, and I'll link the episode where I did that. Well, this is a very similar concept, except it's for your entire project or role or whatever it is that you're actively pursuing. Think about, what is the absolute minimum that you need to accomplish to keep things running, and give yourself permission to only do those things. When you are just focused on these minimal amount of activities, it reduces your decision fatigue, and it's going to free up the mental space for you to start reflecting throughout the day. So this is the strategic part, right? It's letting yourself slow down, then figuring out what you should continue doing, and then using all of that mental space that's opened up to actually expand your thinking. By taking this deliberate rest, it moves you out of just always being on the go, and always doing. And so when we're in that state of just doing, it's hard to be thoughtful. But when you start slowing down, you can deliberately be more thoughtful through reflecting, journaling, thinking in nature, connecting with others, reading. There are so many ways to tap into self-discovery and self-awareness and identity building. The next step is to let the ideas flow in, but to keep track of it. I capture everything in a very low-tech mode. It's what I call a scatterbook. It's just a moleskin notebook, and I later go back and get everything into my information management system. That way I'm not distracted by dings and alerts and tabs that are open on my computer. But I keep this notebook with me wherever I go, in my purse, and then I have it near me in my home when I'm moving around and doing things there. But when I get ideas, when I'm in a reflection mode, I just pull that out and start writing ideas. And the reason I do this is because it is a very low threshold. There are no barriers to getting thoughts that are in my head that may or may not be productive. They may lead to something cool and they may not, but I just want to get them out of my head and onto something in a recorded fashion where I can then decide later what to do with that information. And if you're curious about my information management system, how I might get those notes into a digital hub, or how I might actually process the information, I am going to link episodes 62 and 64 for you to explore that later. But whatever system you use, it really doesn't matter. You just want to have some free flow of thinking and reflecting, and then you can organize your thoughts later. And what you want to do is to start noticing what are the recurring thoughts or ideas that keep surfacing during this rest and slow down period that you're in. What might they be telling you about your priorities? This is going to give you a really important head start when you take those jumble of notes or the journal writing that you do during this time and you start pulling out these themes. This is how you can use all of these reflections into something very useful and productive and even better than what you were doing before. The third step is to use life planning tools so that your restful period feels very purposeful. It feels like everything you're going to do is on purpose, which is in and of itself a very freeing idea. Take all of those ideas and start cross-checking them with your life plan. See if you've identified any new priorities, if you've discovered new things that are part of your self-discovery profile. If you do, those can be new elements in your life plan. You want to add anything new that feels in line with your values. It feels like it's going to move you towards your vision. You want to add those things into your life plan. In fact, I even used my time in these past 2 months, and I used all of my reflections from my journal to help me create a life plan for my business. It's not a traditional business plan. That has its own function. What I created was really analogous to my own life plan, but I modified it so that I was strategically planning out my business and my career goals. And so I hope you're understanding now, you don't have to stay stuck in survival mode. You do deserve balance and the flexibility to adjust your pace based on what your life needs now. And a life plan can give you just that. If you're wondering what a life plan is, I've mentioned it a couple times in this episode, and how you can get one, that's exactly what we do in my Designed Life Method coaching program. Together, one-on-one, we will create a personalized life plan that's going to help you find balance, help you feel accomplished rather than discouraged all the time and undervalued, and reconnect with who you are beyond this daily grind. Your life plan, just like it did for me, is going to help you successfully build a flexible career and a supportive life that allows you to turn the knob up or down to modulate your level of time and energy based on what your life plan is your ultimate work-life balance tool. So if you're ready to make decisions that are going to align with your values and your priorities, then book that free call. You can go to the show notes. I have a link right there. It's going to bring you straight to my booking page, and you can book a time for a free call. So let's turn that overwhelm that you are experiencing right now into opportunities for clarity, the same kind of clarity that I found when I gave myself permission to rest. And then the fourth step is really looking at some concrete markers to convince yourself that you're moving from a state of overwhelm to feeling more clear and aligned, right? So after you have done all of that reflecting and giving yourself the space to think about things, and then you've taken all of your thoughts and used them to start aligning your time and energy towards very intentional and purposeful actions, let's see what kind of progress you've made. So some of the early indicators that you're moving in the right direction is that you're going to start to notice a decrease in decision fatigue. Small choices that you have to deal with are going to feel a lot less draining. You're going to start catching yourself pausing before you have to react. And you're going to break that cycle of the constant do and go mode. You will start to feel slightly less guilty about taking some rest and slowing down. As you continue even further into this restful journey, you're going to start noticing that you can identify what actually matters. Your priorities are going to become clear. You're going to be able to start saying no to various commitments that don't really align with your values. You're going to also start feeling much more connected with yourself and recognize your own thoughts and feelings again. You're going to start to be able to make decisions faster because they've all been filtered through your clear values and priorities, essentially your life plan. You're going to start experiencing moments of calm even when things feel full and busy and demanding and urgent. You're going to be able to kind of flow through those in a much more calmer state. So I'll tell you guys, as we're entering the new year, I have so many goals, so many ambitions that I would like to pursue. Those things didn't leave me just because I slowed down for the past 2 months. They are inside me and burning even more and stronger than ever. I had chosen instead to continue to reflect, to just sit with my kids, reading, playing all kinds of fun new games that we learned, and just really taking time out in nature and enjoying life. Because that time away from my business was going to give me the clarity I need to move forward. It wasn't the extra posts that I can use to shine the light and spotlight my business for 5 minutes of people's attention? No, there's much more strategy that goes into building a business. And we will see the fruits of this, that using this time to create clarity and then to strategically figure out how I'm going to take my limited 2.5 hours that I spend from Monday to Friday and how I can use that to really concentrate growth in my business. That final sign when you know that transformation is complete is when you've confidently adjusted your pace that's based on your life's needs, and you can do that without guilt. That is what I was talking about has been happening for me. Where you show up intentionally for what matters most rather than feeling reactive to everything, feeling like you don't have a choice. You just have to do this or have to do that. You don't get to curate what you end up doing and not doing. And you feel like yourself again. This is the most important. You feel balanced. You feel purposeful and energized rather than depleted. I mentioned that I turned this forced slowdown in my business into a more strategic approach and experimented a little bit. So what does that look like for me now that it's been 2 months? What I got out of resting and slowing down are the 4 C's: calm, creativity, clarity, and connection. I experienced an immense sense of calm. By giving myself the time and space to pause and reflect without an agenda, things just felt so much simpler and calmer. I hit pause on projects and things kept going and working. Nothing broke down. And so it just goes to show you that my guilt was really fueled by cultural expectations and perfection pressure that I had. It wasn't based on reality. And in that calmness, I was able to get back in touch with my more research-minded and analytical person that I am. I was no longer someone who was making business decisions off of what others said had to be done in order to gain success, and that I could still be a scientist who takes pauses in between projects. With a life plan, slowing down really allowed me to tap into creative thinking. I have so many ideas on my next steps, my short-term goals, long-term goals, and big, hairy, audacious goals as well. A lot of new ones that I built into my life plan. I made sure that all of these ideas actually work. And I ditched my ideas that aren't in sync with my life plan. I also gained a lot of clarity because I was in a season where I was carrying too many ideas and roles. And so when I was forced to scale back a little bit, it really created that mental clarity and it protected my long-term ambitions. I have clarity on what matters in this season. Things like family connection, healing, and having mental clarity on who I am. I know what I want to do next and how to stay on track towards my vision. But for those of you who feel off track from your vision, then having your life plan and using it and taking this time to really reflect will help you get back on track towards your vision as well. And the fourth C is connection. By deliberately pausing my projects, it freed my time for so many other priorities that I have. I was able to connect with my family, with my kids. I leaned into motherhood even more amazingly. And I found out that I have a support system that's reliable. A lot of my extended family came through for me during this time. I connected with myself, with my passions, with my goals. Not only was it not risky, right? Because taking a break can be counterintuitive in itself, but it was actually beneficial to me. And ultimately, I found that resting wasn't just this great strategy, right, of these 4 C's that I mentioned: calm, creativity, clarity, and connection, but also for finding balance in life and work. I started to feel like myself again because I gave myself the time to realign with who I am using my life plan. And I have peace of mind that life is unpredictable, but my life planning strategies have allowed me to build a life that's balanced and flexible so I can navigate these changes in whatever pace I need to match that season of life. So I can be present with my family in small ways, like cuddling in our living room and reading Harry Potter as a family, or for me to leave and fly across the country to help other members of my family. All right, I know this is a long episode, so here's what we discovered about intentional rest. Rest can come in many forms. You can be slowing down all the way to taking an actual pause or break. 2 really strong reasons for considering a slowdown or a rest period is to prevent burnout or when you're feeling misaligned and off track. We talked about the mindset shifts to move out of feeling guilty to actually getting on board with a rest period. And then the 4 steps of how to take the rest, which is to let it happen, to start reflecting and letting the ideas flow in, keeping track of those ideas, and then cross-checking them with your life plan. And I provided some concrete markers to show you that you're actually moving forward even though you're taking a restful period. And then finally, the 4 things that rest can create are calm, which is the space to pause without an agenda, creativity, giving yourself room for new ideas, clarity, seeing what truly matters, and 4, connection, leaning into those deeper relationships with family and with yourself. If you feel too guilty to take a rest, just know that that is often fueled by cultural expectations, not reality. In fact, rest isn't a risky thing to do. It's not going to make you fall more behind. It actually protects your long-term ambitions and it prevents burnout, so you can actually go on for longer. Taking time for yourself is how you're going to show up as your best self for everybody else. And if you're not convinced of that, then just take a micro break. Take one of those little pauses in the middle of the day just to remind yourself what resting can feel like. Just breathe, walk, or just pause a little bit from your work and notice how it feels to give yourself this small little permission. Now imagine if you extended that over a much longer period of time. And if you're ready to build a life with both ambition and breathing room, then book that free alignment call with me. And you can do that by clicking on the link in the show notes. Thank you for spending your precious time with me today. The next time I see you, it'll be 2026, and it's going to be a great year for achieving your ambitious mom life.
I hope today's episode will help you create time and freedom to pursue something you love to do. If you enjoy this show, please subscribe and tell other purpose-driven mamas about it. Who knows? You might even make a new friend by sharing a tip. It's all free. By the way, it would be amazing to hear what you think about the show when you leave a review on Apple Podcasts. After all, my passion is to make this a great experience for you. I'll see you next week for another episode of Achieve Your Ambitious Mom Life with Anoki Kapasi.